Hello, fellow kind of critics. Ryan will be out for these next 2 weeks, but today I'm going to be reviewing Crazy Rich Asians and Mile 22. So let's start with Crazy Rich Asians. This is basically the Black Panther summer movie for Asian audiences at this point. Yet the idea of a fantasy love story, but everyone is a different race, is not a novelty, or it feels like it is only catering to that particular audience. All the blowhards will probably criticize how this movie is only getting a great Rotten Tomatoes score because of the notion that this movie is free of criticism because of its all Asian cast. But honestly, let's think about this. I watch movies, not race. Of course, with a title like Crazy Rich Asians, are you really expecting any other kind of race? But then again, halfway through this movie, we see a black person playing an extra in the background, and I was like, holy shit. I mean, she was attractive, but that through off my race meter here. But the point is that movies that I have been used to seeing in Chinese and Japanese cinema was usually Hong Kong action and fighting movies and Japanese anime. Occasionally, there are tons of period piece and thrillers that are refreshing and new, but I think most Eastern production companies know where much of this money comes from, in their films. Put in Jackie Chan, some kung fu, karate, taekwondo, and other fighting styles in mostly action centric films. So watching this feels like I was personally taken into another culture perspective, and that couldn't have been possible without having a full collaboration of talent. Director John M. Chu and writers Peter Chiarle and Adele Lim, yeah, I'm probably butchering these names, adapted this fantasy rom-com that tells a familiar story, but peppers in good characters, the sweet parts of what makes, a romance movie work, confident production and camera work, and just some really gorgeous cinematography. Everything also seems to check off as like this travel guide for the country of China, but does so without slowing down, the story. We get an island getaway, cuisine, extravagant parties, super expensive wedding and outfits, just things you'd be expecting. But it feels all vibrant and colorful, and it really sets the tone for this kind of film. And for a movie that many would say caters to women, there's always something that kept my interest, and I think as a date and drama movie, it works really well. The message of dealing with your culture and race, but as someone who is considered an outsider because they weren't born in a country, it handles that message really well, and I felt like there was really this emotional drive that never felt bogged down. And I'm gonna just read out the list of the cast you're expecting here. We got Constance Wu, Henry Golding, Gemma Chan, Aquafina, Lisa Liu, Ken Jeong, Michelle Yeoh, Nico Santos, Ronnie Ching, Victory Loke, Remy Hill, Selena Tan, Janice Khan, Tang Kong Ha. You just get all this all-star cast of people you weren't expecting, and I feel like most of them have resorted to these background characters. They're probably bigger in China than they are China and other Asian countries than over here, and I just feel like they all get their chance at a spotlight, and I think all the chemistry and all the camaraderie and writing really works in their favor. I never felt annoyed by a certain character. Now, there's one problem I have in this movie is how much of a story brings out this entire cast of different characters. Yet sometimes they throw them out of the loop or have predictable plot lines that don't really impact anything. One in particular involves a couple faced with infidelity, only to have a conclusion in the last 10 minutes, as if it didn't matter when they started it to begin with in the beginning of the movie, like an hour ago. So overall, 5 out of 6 stars. It's a familiar romantic comedy that puts its heart in the right place and gives you plenty of reasons to visit China, as long as you don't talk crap about their government. Yeah, Mile 22. This movie is not worth a lot of people's time. Big Marky Mark fans, go watch this, okay? I mean, everyone else, get ready to laugh, get ready to be bored, get ready to be tired of seeing an action movie about post 9/11 as if this was something that we need to continue talking about. Look, we understand that we want to make plot lines about 9/11, whether it is a fictional or non-fiction story, but it's just insane how these action movies, I feel like this particular Mile 22, this felt like this should have came out 15 or 12 years ago. I mean, no, 12 or 15 years ago, because it's crazy how we continue to bring up 9/11 and completely disparage it and make these lazy action movies that are not as impressive as we want to believe. Peter Berg and the Marky Mark teaming up again with a movie that is not based on a true story. For once, we got Lone Survivor, Deepwater Horizon. Pretty good movies. Patriots Day, pretty good, but offensive as all hell because it's really Mark Wahlberg wants to be a main character of a movie, only to be somebody not based on a real person, and not really giving any reason for us to care about it. Enter Mile 22. Marky Mark is the main hero who leads a group of covert operatives who are the more secret than the CIA, badass, and are also known as Overwatch. No, not the video game. Because, if we had a gorilla and a cowboy to make this movie somewhat interesting, it probably would be, but that's unfortunate. But, um, because it's not, if you think this is not generic enough, there's more. He's got a ragtag group of muscled men and women, bringing that diversity. One's a mom who has to deal with her life as a soldier and a mother. The other two, they're just there. One of them happens to be Ronda Rousey. And finally, we get the other main character played by Iko Uwais, who's actually shafted in this movie. He's supposed to be one of the main characters, but he's more of an asset. He's a little piece of information. He actually becomes a mystery box towards the end of the movie. And if you haven't been catching up with the production of this movie, what's insane is that they decided this is going to be a franchise movie. The poster, the trailer, everything about this movie looks like easy action cash grab. Not to mention, after I just started talking about Crazy Rich Asians, isn't it weird that they're making another movie, catering to the Asian market now that we can make international movies with China, and then just throw in, Iko Wise. Sorry, I'm butchering more names if you can't tell. It's the fact is that this one does it in a way that almost feels a little offensive and a little stupid. We get the incompetent Asian detective. Forgot who he's played by, but yeah, he has a rivalry with Mark Wahlberg for all of 5 minutes, only to be later in the plot as a conflicting character in shootouts. And Mark Wahlberg decides the only way to defeat a single man after destroying half his army is to blow him up with a Predator missile from a drone. What the hell? This movie is ridiculous, and it plays it all straight. I feel like Mark Wahlberg at this point is just a parody of himself in these kinds of movies. We used to have a very, well-bloomed action comedian sort of character. I definitely liked his older work, The Other Guys, Ted. When he's mellow, when he has a director and a script really keeping him on his toes, and really focusing on what he needs to do to be an actor. And now in this movie, it seems like he's basically that Family Guy cutaway.
What's going on? I don't get it. Man, I gotta work out. What's going on here? Where am I? What the... Huh?
Stupid shit like that. And in this movie, he has the same delivery pattern, as if the script made sure to make this delivery pattern clear. He plays this super genius, head of the pack leader, even though he almost does nothing that indicates his intellect. His dialogue revolves around, telling someone, referencing a scripture, the part of the Bible, some oddball history lesson, and then he swears at them, and then he tells them how much he served them and contest, and he's done. That's the whole burn. It's a burn setup. It's all burn setups, and it would be fine if he wasn't the only one doing it. Everyone in this movie is Mark Wahlberg, just some angry, sweating Brooklyn man, and it's crazy. I think everyone in this movie swore at least 3 or 4 times. As if this was trying to be some kind of edgy action movie, very pretentious kind of thing. It's so strange. This movie is strange. They're expecting 2 or 3 more sequels. This is a $35 million budget action movie. This is C-grade action movie at best, quick camera cuts, This is coming from a guy that did Lone Survivor. Pretty good, gunplay, and they somehow made us care about the characters. This movie took 10 minutes to introduce characters, and I barely knew anything about them. We only learned that Ronda Rousey's characters has her birthday during the death-defying mission they're about to endure, and one guy has a ponytail, and Iko Uwais, he's the Asian guy who really knows how to do karate, you know. And after watching Crazy Rich Asians and seeing a movie like this, I'm like, oh wow, way to relegate someone into a background character and making it obvious how Hollywood really doesn't give a shit about these kind of things. And yeah, I mean, God, Peter Berg, you need to go back to making movies based on tragedies, because this movie right here, this is the real tragedy. The script, the direction, the action. The only thing interesting about this movie is when Iko Uwais, I think he actually probably helped with the choreography of his action scenes. He had a really nice hospital fight. And then there's an insane, like, couple of other fights that he's involved with gunplay, and it's amazing. Like, I think he really did help out with those scenes, because everything else in this movie, creatively bankrupt, ridiculous. This is a good movie to watch, maybe at your house. Watching this in a movie theater was just, it's mind-numbingly boring, unfortunately. And when it's not, being a senseless action movie that doesn't, differentiate itself from the hundreds of action movies we've seen in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, we get, political satire. Well, not even political satire. We got political imagery, as if it's supposed to mean something in the long run. We get these president, bobbleheads of presidents, and they made it clear that they had to be part of the scenes. And then it's just like it's just this unjust patriotism. Maybe it was supposed to be intentional. Maybe it was supposed to be unintentional. It's a shame that this movie wasn't consistent enough with its own tone. That it's it's garbage. It's pretentious. You're trying to make someone think in an action movie when you have almost zero in originality, and then you decide, oh, you know what, this is also has to do with politics. Let's make Mark Wahlberg talk about politics for at least 2 or 3 minutes in the middle of in the middle of an intense gunfight in the middle of a country. These people aren't likable. You gave me a government kill squad that I'm supposed to care about, and then the incompetent leader decides to sacrifice other members of his team, save one of his members for no reason except the fact that she has a daughter, and then nearly jeopardize the mission that he's in. And in the end, he does fail, in a way. No spoilers here, but I don't know. Let me know what exactly you thought about this movie, because this is a easy 2 out of 6. This is ridiculous. It was entertaining enough because of how amazingly weird and terrible it is, and it's just so jaw dropping of how Peter Berg probably really was expecting a franchise hit out of this thing. But yeah, that's my take on these two movies.